Hi loves! Welcome back to the channel. It's Rakiba Gafora. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you are a new viewer and would like to be a subscriber, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, to smash that subscribe button, and to keep your post notifications turned on so that you can be notified every time I post another lit, amazing video. It's time for chit chat, girl talk, all of that. As you can see from the caption down below, I'll be talking about my pregnancy experience. As some of you may already know, I am almost 3 months postpartum, so my daughter is almost 3 months old. Super excited about that. Let's just get into today's video, you guys. Let's start from the beginning. How did I find out that I was pregnant? I'm a medical school student, so I remember that it was the end of one of my semesters and I decided that I was gonna work. And I remember I was working and I kept feeling like horrible. I mean, it was like the worst level of nausea you could ever imagine. And I was also on a diet at the time, so I was like cutting down my calories. I was eating differently. I was doing like light level of workouts, like light exercise, on top of the fact that I was working at the time. And my body just wasn't having it. I had these like weird hormonal things that was going on with me. Like I had hair that was like coming up under my neck and I was like, what the heck? That's not something that I normally have to deal with or face. I was at work one day and I was like really like exerting myself this particular day. And I remember I was calling my boyfriend. I was like, babe, can you please pick me up from work? Like, I feel like we need to go to the doctor. Like, this is just not working for me. So we ended up going to the emergency room. It never occurred to me that like you could be pregnant, you know what I mean? And it wasn't necessarily that we were trying to get pregnant, but we weren't not trying, if that makes sense. Like we knew it could happen, but it wasn't something that we were actively thinking to ourselves, okay, let's try to have a baby right now. Everything just kind of worked out just like so amazingly. Anyways, back to the story. So we went to the emergency room and you know, like when you're at the emergency room, they have to like do a urine sample and a whole bunch of like other like tests just to see what's going on. So they were like feeling on my stomach and he was like, And then I remember he did the urine sample and then they came back. It was mid-June at the time. And the doctor was like talking to me. He was like, you are currently pregnant. And I remember being told and it kind of just like stopped me in my tracks. I was like, wow, I'm pregnant. Like I'm about to be someone else's guardian. Like I'm about to be a whole mom out here. My boyfriend, he had a whole lot more excitement exuding from him than it was exuding from me. Like he was super excited. He was like, he's gonna have a little him running around and everything, which is funny because my daughter looks exactly like him. So he did end up getting a little him running around. Not yet with the running, but she's getting there. And I just sat there and I remember he was looking at me and he was like, what are you thinking? Like what's going through your head? Like what's the problem? And I was saying to myself the whole time, like this is crazy. Like I'm about to be a mom. Our semester is starting again. And with our semester starting, I would have had to return to the island because I go to school in Antigua. It's a US school. It's just overseas. And I would have to go back to Antigua by myself, you know, being pregnant, not really having the kind of support that I would like to have, like having my boyfriend there and everything. And I think that was what was stressing me out the most. Just thinking to myself, like, I'm literally gonna be alone. He's not gonna be there. And I'm gonna have to go through the first like 6-7 months of pregnancy like by myself. And that was pretty scary for me. Him being just such a positive person was just always like, babe, it's gonna be okay. Like, we'll be fine. You know, we'll make it work. Nothing you have to like be worried or stressed about. You know, wanting a child at 25 is something you've always wanted. So just think about the positive that's gonna come from this rather than the negative that you're so focused on. And it was at that point in time that I kind of like shifted my focus to the fact that like, I'm pregnant, we're about to be parents, I'm gonna be a mom, I'm 25, she's gonna be born and I'm 25. This is so perfect. Like this is what I've always wanted. Then we decided to kind of keep the pregnancy, not necessarily a secret, but to keep it to ourselves for some time until I was ready to share that with family and to share that with the world. I didn't start telling people until like 5-6 months, which is crazy when you think about it, because it's like, how can you be pregnant for so long and not tell anyone? It was easy for me because at 6 months I wasn't even like showing, like my stomach wasn't out there. I remember I told my parents at like 4 months or so, and then we started telling his family like around the same time that we told mine. She was already like a month and a half, like almost 2 months by the time I started like sharing the fact that she was in the world, or that I was pregnant with people. So that's how that part of my pregnancy went. How did I feel during my pregnancy? I absolutely loved being pregnant, despite the throwing up, despite the nausea, and it was probably one of the best feelings I've ever had in my life, because you literally feel a whole human being growing inside of you. And don't get me wrong, like sometimes you forget you're even pregnant. Like you don't even remember you're pregnant until you feel somebody kick you, and you don't even start feeling kicks until like after 4 months. At least for me, that's when I started feeling kicks. And I also felt the most beautiful during my pregnancy. My skin was glowing, my face was just like lit up, I just looked radiant. The only thing that I wasn't necessarily fond of, the mere fact that like my nose went from being like this to like this, and it was like spread all over my face, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not it. But I got over it. When I got to the second trimester, I literally forgot that I was pregnant. Like it didn't feel like I was pregnant. I felt normal. Then my third trimester, that one was actually really tough for me, because that's when I started gaining the most weight. Like everything just kind of went to shit. And I remember I went to the doctor and she was like, you are gaining weight way too fast. Like we need to figure out what's going on. We need to kind of get this under control, because this is not good. You're entering like preeclampsia territory. Why would I even be entering preeclampsia territory? My blood pressure this whole time has been like amazing. My blood pressure was like 115 over like 60 something the whole time I was pregnant. Preeclampsia just never occurred to me. And she's like, it's not just about your blood pressure that can cause preeclampsia. You're an African American woman. That already puts you at a predisposition for getting preeclampsia. It's your first pregnancy. And just the fact that you were gaining weight tremendously, way too fast. I was putting on like 5 pounds like every 2 weeks that I have to go see her. So I was gaining like double, triple, quadruple what I was supposed to be gaining. What the heck is going on? We ended up deciding to induce my labor. Let's just talk about the fact that I don't eat meat. So I've always been like a vegetarian, pescatarian kind of person. And while I was pregnant, I could not have seafood. My throat was closing up. I was so deprived, which was really rough, because a girl can get tired of eating the same things every single day. Like it became okay. Another thing that I experienced during my pregnancy was swelling. A lot of pregnant women, their feet are swollen during their pregnancy, but for me, my swelling was crazy. I mean, my legs were so swollen that it became difficult for me to walk. My feet were swelling. I was accumulating water, which at the time we didn't know that I was accumulating water until after my daughter was born. This water is basically strangling you. That's a whole nother video, a whole nother conversation about what my postpartum experience was like. That was scary, you guys. I legit thought I was going to die. Stay tuned for that video on what my postpartum experience was like, because that was so difficult for me. Like I thought I was gonna be up out of here. Back to pregnancy. There were times I would literally wake up in the morning and try to go use the bathroom and could not get up out of bed because I had like sciatic pains. I couldn't walk on my right foot. I was literally like bedridden for some time. And I actually ended up being hospitalized for like 4 days when I was in Antigua. That in itself was so scary because, like I said, I didn't have any family there, and the friends that I did have, we started having really weird issues. One day we were cool, we were all buddy-buddy, and then the next we were not. And that in itself added a level of stress that I did not need. So I decided to not allow it to be a stressor. What happened in that situation, why I ended up at the hospital, was I remember I was studying for my second exam of the semester. So I was in the library and I was studying with one of my friends. And I remember I kept saying to her, like, I don't feel very well, so I think I'm just gonna go home. I remember I was on my way home and I just felt ridiculous. I was having like abdominal cramping. It felt like I was gonna go into labor. I called my OB back home and it was late at night. It was like 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and I'm explaining all the things that's happening to me, and she's like, that sounds a lot like you could be going into preterm labor. I wasn't even 30 weeks yet. I was 27 weeks. I'm trying to drive to the emergency room and the security guards at the gate were like, hey, are you okay? And I was explaining to them like what was going on and asking for directions because I didn't exactly know where the hospital was and my GPS was tripping on my phone. She's like, no, just like park your car over there and we're gonna call the ambulance and we'll just have them come and get you. So I parked my car, they called the ambulance came. First of all, I'm thinking that the ambulance that's coming to get me is like a legit ambulance, like the big square rectangle looking iron things. No, it was a minivan. I'm being picked up in a minivan to go to the hospital. What if I seriously am about to like give birth in this minivan? Like, what the heck? And they took me to the hospital and I immediately started crying because when I went to the hospital, the nurse, literally this lady looked at me and y'all, I cannot make this up. She looked at me and she said, are you sure you're pregnant? What? That's wild to me. I'm literally sitting here in pain crying. I texted my best friend and I was telling her what was going on, and you know, she was super worried, so she was like on the phone texting to make sure that I was like okay, and then my boyfriend was in my ear, you know, like trying to calm me down. Finally get to see the doctor and he's examining me and everything, so they hooked me up on the machine to see if I was contracting. I was contracting a little bit, but not significantly enough for them to be so concerned that I would have a baby that night. But they did want to monitor me for a few days because of the fact that I was contracting a little bit. I stayed the night for 4 days. I had no water the whole time I was there. They fed me twice, I think. Like, they gave me breakfast and then they gave me dinner. But like in between, when I was starving, I like had nothing to eat. One of my friends actually did end up messaging me. She was the one that actually ended up taking me home when they discharged me from the hospital. One of the security guards that was on campus the day that I was being taken to the hospital, she was super nice and just like super supportive. She made a huge difference those last couple weeks that I spent on the island before I had to return home and see my doctors here. And I'm starting to feel a little emotional because that was so amazing for me and I needed that help. Even in moments when you feel like you're alone, there's gonna be someone, you know, and then also knowing that you also have yourself. It was very humbling. For 3 days I had to like get everything organized before I could leave, so that was just a whole lot for me. Packing up everything that I had there to bring back, being 6.5 months pregnant was just too much, which is part of the reason why I kind of wanted to share my pregnancy experience, because I know that there are a lot of people that are alone during that time, and I know that it's hard being alone and feeling like you're alone, but sometimes help can present itself in all different kinds and forms. It's important to accept that help if you can accept it, and seek out places that you can get the help that you need, because that's gonna make a huge difference in just how smooth your pregnancy goes and how stressed out you feel during your pregnancy. And trust me, you do not want to feel stressed out, because part of that is what sent me to the emergency room in the first place. When I came home, I was feeling super shitty, just physically and mentally. Like, I felt sick and I was just swollen all the time. I was in pain all the time. I had been having these weird like abdominal cramps and just feeling super horrible. And then it came to a point where I was just like, babe, I am so ready to just have the baby already. And we had already started getting everything in the house prepared, like her room together. Hospital bags were already packed. So I'm in class, online, sitting on my bed. As soon as class was finished, I literally felt like a gush of liquid come out, and I was like, oh my god. I texted my boyfriend. I was like, babe, I think my water just broke. And he like immediately called, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna hop in the shower and then we can go. And he's like, babe, come on, let's go. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not about to come out of this house unless my body is rinsed. So I ended up taking a shower, and like I'm showering and like there's liquid like gushing from me at the same time, and I'm like, what's the point? I ended up getting dressed. The whole time I was getting dressed, I was gushing liquids. Then I started to see blood, and I was like, okay, now we need to go to the hospital. He had already done a test ride to the hospital before. Finally get there, we're checked in, and you guys, I was literally like 2.5, 3 centimeters dilated. I was not moving. Even though my water had broken, I was not moving. We had planned to induce my labor that Tuesday, and this was Friday. So Thursday night we had a birthday dinner, and at the birthday dinner I kept saying, babe, I don't know if I'm gonna make it through the night. Just like the amount of pain that I'm feeling, I made it through the night, but I could not make it through Friday. Went to the hospital, sitting there, and I just kept gushing fluid. I mean, the whole bed was soaking wet. Is this amniotic fluid? Like, what is going on? And so like she did like this test with like a piece of paper. It kind of looks like a litmus paper, but not really. So she did that, and she's like, the color isn't giving what it needs to give. So I'm not 100% sure that this is amniotic fluid. I said, it gotta be something because I'm not peeing. Like, this is amniotic fluid. I'm not peeing on myself. Ended up that I was in the hospital from Friday until Sunday morning at 7:24 a.m. So I was in labor that whole time. And I had already decided that I'm a G. I don't need no epidural. I'm about to do this natural. Like, I got this. Nothing to worry about. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. I thought. I was just in so much pain. I was in labor and I was throwing up. I was shivering like it was cold, and they had the heat on in there. No, I had to get that epidural real fast. I got the epidural. It was not done correctly. On the left side of my body was numb, but the right side of my body was not. So it was kind of like I could still feel the pains, the pressures, the cramping on one side of my body, and I couldn't feel it, not as much, on the other side of my body. And I could still wiggle my toes. I could still move my feet up and down. Like, they felt heavy. I could spin around or like whatever they needed me to do because they were trying to get me to dilate and for the baby to come down, and she was not having it. Every time we'd get her down, she'd go right back up. I had to get on my hands and knees at one point. I had to roll to my side. Like, I was like walking around the bed. Even for dilating, like, they had to stop the medication at one point and restart it because my body was metabolizing the medication so fast that it wasn't getting me to dilate as quickly as it needed to. And I was feeling the pains at the same time too. So they ended up having to give me another pain medication on top of the epidural. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go to sleep. At that time, I was dilated maybe like 7 when I fell asleep. And then when I woke up, I was like, okay, it's time for her to come because I was feeling this intense, like, I need to push. And she came out with her bottom lip poking out just like this. And then as soon as she came out, she decided to stop breathing. And I'm just like, girl, what are you doing? And I'm freaking out because I'm just like, oh my God, what's happening? And my doctor is trying to like calm me down. Like, she's holding my leg. She's like, it's okay. Like, she's fine. You know, respiratory team is working on her. Babies can do that sometimes. And I'm like looking at my boyfriend. I'm just like, babe, he's holding my hand and he's also trying to like pay attention to what's going on with respiratory. He doesn't freak out in any situation. He's like one of the calmest people in any situation ever. So that ended up calming me down, which was really great because I'm like still like getting stuff taken out of me and I'm like freaking out at the same time. And I actually didn't even rip. There was like a small internal tear. So I maybe got like 2 stitches. We ended up having to stay in the hospital for a week, and then we kept going back and forth to the hospital. That was pretty much what my pregnancy experience was like for me. You know, it was tough. but it was definitely an experience that I'm so grateful that I had to have. My whole pregnancy kind of taught me to be more humble and more patient and just more open and definitely more calm and 1000% more positive. If there's anything that you guys want to know, or if you have any particular questions about my pregnancy or what it was like for me, go ahead and drop those questions down below in the comment section. So that is pretty much it for today's video. I'm just gonna close today's video out right here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as always. Thank you for the support. I love you guys. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, to smash that subscribe button, and to keep your post notifications turned on so that you can be notified every time I post another lit amazing video. Follow me on all social media platforms at Essence of Gafora with 2 underscores. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.